Hello everyone, it's Raleigh and welcome to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about the lead specializations. Before we get started, I just want to kind of address a couple things. So obviously I did play the beta for the elite specializations, and I was asked to make a video kind of summarizing my thoughts on everything. The thing is that I didn't want to make like a structured video. I didn't want to sit down and like write a script and like write all these notes and collect all this footage because that would have taken way too long. And I feel like that would have taken me, you guys know that it takes me a long time to make any of my like real structured videos, the ones where I do all of those things, right? They take me a long time to make. So I figured, why don't we just sit down and just I'm just gonna kind of ramble, kind of rant, like I used to do these types of videos all the time in the past until I decided to kind of make videos after a lot of people were like, okay, it would be nice if you could like write a script, right? There was a lot of people that asked for that in the past, and I had changed what I did back then because I agreed with that. But now I think something like this, just for the like sense of urgency, right? Because we want to get the feedback out as soon as possible to ArenaNet. I figured, let me just sit down, talk about all of the elite specializations in one video, kind of give my feedback that way, and see what you guys thought as well. And just kind of do it that way. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that I don't really deal with, like, I'm not a person that's really good with like meta builds or builds in general, right? Like, I don't know which profession really needs to provide which boon and like which role needs what and like all these different things, right? Like, I'm not into all that theory crafting. To me, what it comes down to is the feel of a class, does the concept connect with the ideas, with the traits, with the skills? Does it all around feel like a well thought out thing, and then like the execution is there, like, that's more the stuff that I deal with. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the visuals today. We're going to talk about there's certain instances where like traits I'm going to bring up. I don't really know the traits by name, so kind of take that for what you will. So I'm going to kind of describe it as we go along. And just kind of talk about the themes in general, that kind of stuff, right? The ideas and all that. So yeah, so those couple of points, I wanted to get those out of the way just so you guys know what to expect from this video. But let's kind of get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is the Troubadour, okay? So the Troubadour is Mesmer, right? Is the Mesmer. And this, I feel like this elite spec kind of stems from the idea that a lot of people have been wanting a bard in the game, right? This is something that's been long requested, and ArenaNet right now are in their phase of listening to the player base as much as they can, right? That's kind of the idea. That's kind of where they're at right now, is everything, like, add as many things as the people have been requesting to make the game what the people want it to be, right? Which is great. I like it, okay? So how is the execution on the Troubadour? Well, I think they're going in the right direction, but I think there's certain things that they need to kind of change. So first of all, and this has been pointed out, I think, by a lot of other people, is the little notes, the visual above your skills that shows the little notes that you get. It's a little wonky, and again, we're going to see this with a lot of these elite specializations. It's about playing the UI rather than playing the game. And this is something that is so anti-Guild Wars 2 and so anti what ArenaNet has been wanting to do ever since the inception of Guild Wars 2, right? In their early trailers, they talked about how they didn't want to put all this stuff on screen and have you play the UI. They wanted you to play the game and just focus on that. And I think with a lot of these elite specializations, specifically in this case the Troubadour, you're kind of doing that because you have to kind of pay attention with how many notes you have. And there's no visual indicator on the field on like the amount of notes that you have, right? With the Virtuoso, we did get that. We had the blades that were above us. So my idea would be to have these notes actually float above us, right? I think having the notes around us or in some kind of way around us They don't have to be super big, but just something to give us a visual indicator on screen with how many notes I have. I think that would help a lot, because I think Guild Wars 2, in the way that the combat works as well, is like you constantly have to be focused on the screen, because positioning and ground targeting is so important, right? And there's just like so many instances, specifically for endgame, where you have to jump out of the way, or you have to look away from an enemy or something. Like, I'm thinking of like specific like raid or strike instances, right, where you have to do specific movement related things, and that takes your attention away from the UI, right? You can't always pay attention to the UI. So it would be kind of nice to have something specifically maybe for newer people. I mean, obviously, I think veterans can probably tell, like someone that's played like 10,000 hours of Mesmer can probably tell exactly after a while, like how many clones they have out for Troubadour, you know, how many notes are filled out, and they can just use the instruments as it goes. But yeah, so I wish there was like a visual for that, right? Like I wish there was like notes that kind of hang around you, because to be honest, the Troubadour feels, again, it feels like the step in the right direction towards being a music-based thing, but I'm kind of missing more music-focused things. So with that said, right, it's like the notes, but then what else am I missing? Well, it's really funny because I saw a post online about how Wooden Potatoes actually, I didn't watch a stream, but I saw that they had changed the volume of the instruments. I didn't play Troubadour after they did that, so I don't know what it was. But it was funny because I had the exact same thought on my stream a day before he was streaming. I had the exact same thought. I was like, you can even go back and watch the stream, but you can see me like listening, like, am I hearing the instruments? Like, I'm not really hearing the instruments. And it was one of those things that I was doing a lot, right? Where I was like, okay, you can kind of hear it, right? You can kind of hear the drums, and you kind of hear some of the stuff. But I feel like to really have this, like, the crescendo really didn't feel like a crescendo, because I felt like the instruments were so quiet. So they might have changed that already, but it would be kind of nice to have that, right? So if that's already fixed, that's great. But then we kind of talk about the tails. And to me, the tails, that's like a different concept entirely, I feel like, right? We talk about the concept of the Troubadour was that it's Sylvari returning to the Grove and telling the tales in like a Scald version of, you know, they didn't want to make it Norn because they already had a Norn-inspired elite specialization, so they figured we'll pick something else, which ended up being the Sylvari. So it doesn't thematically really fit, but it's fine. You know, we can kind of... The thing is, the Sylvari are very malleable in the way that they like have their society and the ways that they do things because they're so young. So it's totally fine. We could totally twist it that way to make it work. But I feel like tails don't really work that well. They seem fine, right? You get the icon above, and then you get like a voice line that kind of recites part of their story, right, or whatever, right, which is totally fine. It's like I said, it's the Scald, right, which kind of goes with the music and minstrel, right, like that whole theme is there a little bit. But I feel like that if we're going with something bard related, or if we're going with something music related, I really wish that we would have something like actual instruments that the character plays. Because the thing is that yes, you play the instruments when you press the F abilities, but I really wish that like the utility skills were like different instruments as well. Like I don't know if that makes sense or if other people feel the same way, but I just feel like tails don't really fit in there. They seem, because they don't seem musical also in the way that they're presented. Like yes, they're read out as like a part of a poem almost, right? But I don't think that really feels musical enough. I wish there was more of a musical influence. So I wish the details, I know that's probably a lot to ask, but I feel like that should be changed in a way. That I think the tail effects are fine, but it would be nice to have like an actual instrument with it. Like have some kind of instruments that they play, or completely change it to not actually be tales of characters or whatever, and just have different instruments or something. So that's kind of the Troubadour. I think the Troubadour itself is fine in what it does. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not fine because it doesn't have the numbers, or Chronomancer does this better or that better, or blah, 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 whatever, right? Like I said, I don't really deal with what boons it needs. And because in my opinion, and I'll tell you guys right now, in my opinion, I think that's easy changes. That's simple changes. You can easily slap a 5-second alacrity boon on any of the tails and have boom, have Troubadour be alacrity, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at with those types of things, right? Like I think if the balance, if they really go heavy on the balance and they really look at the things they need to change, like those are simple changes. You know, adding damage numbers on something like the Luminary, for example, we're going to talk about that in a second. You know, that's a simple fix, right? They can just add a 0 to the end of a skill and make it super overpowered, right? Like that's not that hard to do, I feel like. So I don't really want to get into those very specific things because I feel like then we're nitpicking a little bit as well, because it's like, you know, obviously ArenaNet is going to try to aim to have these all be balanced, or at least that's the hope that we have, right? We'll have to see how it's executed, obviously, but I'm talking about specifically themes and stuff like that. So I think the Troubadour needs to lean a little bit more into the musical fact of things, and tails seem kind of weird, and just add a little bit of the visual notes there. Other than that, I wasn't super blown away by it, but I feel like it's just because I'm not like a Mesmer main. Anytime I play a Mesmer, it's usually a Mirage, and I really like the concept of Mirage and the idea behind it, and I think it's executed really well. But I just think for the people that have been looking for a Bard, this is not quite what they're looking for, right? So I think we can kind of improve that a little bit. Take out the tails. I don't know if they're really that fitting. I like the idea of tails, but I feel like that would have to go into like a different elite spec, in my opinion. So next up, let's talk about Luminary. So Luminary has this interesting thing where, again, so let's talk about it visually, right? We have this lantern that's behind us the whole time, and the lantern doesn't really make that much sense, in my opinion, because once you enter the shroud, the lantern disappears, and when you're out of shroud, you just have this lantern behind you the whole time that does nothing. It does visually nothing, okay? And it's kind of upsetting because I find it to be very obsolete. Like there's no reason to have the lantern. Why is it there? Just to signify that it's like a you know, an Iron Legion and Flame Legion group project. It doesn't really feel like that's something. It seems kind of shoehorned in. Like, hey, we want to solidify that yes, it was the Iron and the Flame Legion that made this, and so here's this thing that kind of solidifies that, right? So it's kind of weird. I think they could do more with the lantern. So here's my thought with the lantern, right? Without taking it away, because I like the idea of having something visually there, but actually make it work for the spec, okay? So the thing is, right now, again, we're playing the UI because on the UI, you can see the duration of your shroud, right? So it'd be really nice to have visually the lantern run out of energy, like have the flame in the lantern go lower and lower and lower as we're going through the shroud. And as the shroud, like, you know, the energy on the shroud kind of goes out, the flame in the lantern goes out. I know that the lantern disappears when you're in shroud. Just have it stay there and then go lower and lower and lower, and as it like dims out, so that way we have a visual indicator on the field that tells me how long I have left in my shroud, right? Gives it a little bit of a purpose, and it doesn't make it feel like why is it there, right? Like I think that's something that ArenaNet needs to do something with the lantern, because it's just there and it just feels, a lot of people are like, what's the purpose of this, right? It's not part of the icon, right, for the Luminary. The Luminary itself, the icon is a shield. It doesn't really, that I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's it doesn't really connect in any shape or form. The lantern has no connection to anything. If you take it away, it wouldn't take anything away from the elite spec. So let's give it something that actually would make it feel like the elite spec was missing something. So have the lantern as you're battling in shroud, lower, lower, lower until it's completely out, and then as it recharge, as the recharge happens on your shroud, right? Because there's like a 20-second cooldown or something like that. I don't remember what the timer on it is, but as that cooldown is happening, you can see the lantern fill up with energy again. And so you have a visual indicator where your shroud is at and when you can go into shroud, right? So I think there's a purpose for that. So that would be the first change that I do. Then the other thing was, and a lot of people have talked about this. So in my opinion, and we had a discussion about this on Discord actually, and some people disagreed with me, but I will die on this hill. I swear. Like I feel like I'm onto something with this. So I looked at some of the traits, and a lot of the traits, I think there's like 3 or 4 of them that deal with like something you do with virtues. Okay, like if you are using a virtue or whatever, it kind of, there's some that interact with your lantern, there's some that are just doing whatever. But I think this is the first elite specialization that we have for the Guardian that doesn't deal with anything virtue related, right? All the other ones, so we take the Dragon Hunter. The Dragon Hunter changes what each of the virtues does for their main mechanic, right? Then we take the Firebrand, which once again changes what the virtues do, right? And then we have the Willbender, which again changes what the virtues do. This is the first elite specialization for the Guardian that doesn't focus on the virtues. It leaves the core virtues and it adds another button for something different. And I like that. I think that's really, really cool because we've already done the changes to the virtues 3 times now, and that's getting really old, right? So why do we have traits that focus on the virtues? If we're stepping away from the virtues, why have trades that deal specifically with the virtues? That feels like wasted trades. So there's one trade I think that a lot of people really enjoyed, and this has been, I've seen a few comments by other people already that have talked about this a little bit, where they said, you know, there is a little bit of a focus of light auras, right? Where you have a way of creating light auras, and then you have this Grandmaster trait that explodes light auras, right? And I would like to take that concept, and I would like them to take the other 2 Grandmaster, because this is a Grandmaster trait that explodes to light auras. I would like them to do what other elite specializations do in their Grandmasters, where the Grandmasters, in my opinion, kind of should change what the main mechanic kind of does. What, you know, we have, for example, we have the Mechanist, right? And each of the Grandmasters changes what your mech does, and it's like regular, you know, auto-attacking style, right? Like it changes what it does. And I like that. It's really, really cool because it changes a little bit of the play style a little bit there, right? So you get this one elite specialization that has a focus on something, but then you have very specific ways that you can kind of trade into it and have different places to play this. And it would be really cool to have maybe a Grandmaster trait that explodes it, and you have something that's like a supportive thing, right? Right now it explodes and it does damage and it does some healing, I believe is what it does. It would be really cool if it had something where one of the Grandmaster traits, it explodes and does a lot of damage, just power damage. It explodes the light auras and does a lot of burning around you, but not really a lot of damage, just Conduit based, right? And then have a third one that's healing based, where maybe it explodes around and does healing and provides light auras for like 5 friendly units around you or something like that, right? You know, something like that, where you can kind of play with the idea of light auras and really focus on the idea of light auras and take some of the other traits and maybe find some other ways to apply light auras or maybe explode them or something like that, right? And then have the Grandmaster traits play into that and kind of have the Grandmaster traits be the way that you can play with the light auras that are provided through the Shroud. The Shroud itself, it's okay. It doesn't really, it's strange because they tried to take what the virtues do and apply that to the Shroud abilities. But that's kind of limiting in a way, because when you're building a specific build in Guild Wars 2, you have it usually, for the most part, obviously I know there's like exceptions to all of these, right? There's no specific, like there's specific roles, but they're kind of, they blend into each other a little bit more than in other games. But you have mostly like power DPS, Conduit DPS, or support, right? Like overarching, obviously you have some that blend together. There's like a big Venn diagram that you could draw out, right, on all these different roles and stuff and how they fit. But for the most part, it's like power DPS, Conduit DPS, and then support, right, in some shape, or healing, or whatever you want to call it. It would be interesting. And the thing is that with the Shroud skills on the Luminary, it's like the 2 ability is like your damage, and then your 3 ability is your healing, and then your 4 is like your defensive type, right? And that's kind of where the, you know, this is kind of based off of the virtues, because that's what like F1 does, like the power and Conduit, and then F2 does the healing, and then, or the support, and then F3 does the like defensive type, right? And it would just be really cool to have something different there, where you could maybe specialize your shroud in specific ways, where you can have them focus on one of the things, right? Because again, you build your builds around one of the 3 things, but the shroud provides all 3 different things. So it's kind of, it's when you're in a DPS build, the shroud that provides the staff doesn't really do anything, right? The staff or the defensive types, which are the shield or the sword and shield or whatever it is, right? The 4 and the 5 there. They don't really provide anything to you. So you're missing out on like 2 to 3 skills because your build does not have anything to do with it. So what's the point in having a whole shroud if a lot of people are saying, well, right now the only thing you want to do is use your hammer twice and then get out of shroud because you want to get the 10% extra damage or whatever it is, right? So the purpose of the shroud feels a little lost. I feel like there has to be some kind of way, and they could do it through traits. They could do it through, you know, they've been doing a lot of, this time around with the elite specializations, they've been doing a lot of selecting your specific skills in some shape or form, right? Like the Amalgam lets you pick out your F abilities, the Evoker lets you pick out which familiar you're specialized, like element you specialize in, like giving you a specific familiar, right? Like it would be kind of nice to maybe have that for the shroud, where we could say, you know, maybe it gives us different options on shrouds. And it's like, yeah, okay, I want to specialize in the burning shroud or the damage shroud or the healing shroud. And then when you specialize in one of those and you go into the shroud, it immediately equips that weapon, right? So if I'm saying I want to be in the healing shroud, I then click that button to go into the shroud, and I immediately have the staff in my hand, that, you know, that illusionary staff or whatever, right? That fiery staff. And I then use that, like I use that, I get a new set of abilities, like specialized shroud abilities that then deal with, you know, providing support with the staff, right? And like having different healing and different things, because it's really hard to design this elite spec around the shroud that is trying to be able to cover all of those different fields, because that's what it feels like with the Luminary, right? Like it has the icon of the shield, but then it doesn't do anything like defensive wise. Like it does, it can, but only on like 2 skills. Again, it's just kind of like, I tried to do that during the stream. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do super defensive build, and I was kind of stuck with like, okay, I go into shroud, I use 2 of my skills because those are defensive, right? I was in World vs. World, I'm like, I'm gonna defend, and it ended up being pretty, it wasn't bad number wise, right? But the shroud, like, it just, I'm like, it felt so useless, because if you're trying to do a specific thing, and I know that your 1 skill changes based on which weapon you have equipped, right? But still, then you're kind of left with just pressing 1 over and over and over again. And again, that's against what ArenaNet, when if they themselves go back and watch their own trailers from, you know, before Guild Wars 2 was released, they don't want that, right? Colin Johansson in one of those trailers said, oh, I swung a sword again, I swung a sword again, oh, that's super exciting, right? Or whatever he said. And that's not, right? But that's what you're building the shroud around. It's like, okay, I equip the hammer, and then I press 1 to swing the hammer, and swing it again, and swing it again. There's nothing exciting about the shroud. So I kind of would like to see some changes there. The stand skills I thought were fine. I think visually they were really impressive. I thought they looked really cool. Like anytime I used them, I thought they were really cool. I don't really have any notes on that in particular. Obviously, you know, I'm sure some of the numbers need to be changed or whatever. I thought it was fine the way that it did. Obviously, I like the callback to ArenaNet's, you know, little arena, right? That you get on the elite skill and stuff. I thought they looked fine. You know, obviously utility skills always try to provide different things. So it's fine to do what I talked about earlier, where it's like, oh, one's damage, one's healing, one's, like CC, or, something like cleansing conditions or whatever, right? Like supporting in a way. Like that's always how utility skills have been developed, right? Like you always get 4 of a set of utility skills and each one does something different. So it's fine the way that they are designed, but I just think that Shroud skills shouldn't do that. So that's kind of my idea on the Luminary. Again, I talked about the shield a little bit. I think the shield, and that's where I kind of wanted to build the bridge there, is like and I'm looking down because I have some notes written down that I'm gonna, like, as I go through, I can kind of read off of them. But the thing is, the shield would go really well with the idea of the light aura, right? Because if we're like this light aura mancer, right, and we cast all these auras or whatever, right, like kind of do that, I think it would kind of dip into that shield idea a little bit more, right? Just really have it be kind of like, okay, there is a reason for that shield, is because, this light aura is almost like a shield around us, and we do fun things with that. And that's kind of what the Elite Spec is focused on. It kind of feels like the Luminary doesn't have like a specific focus on anything, and that's kind of where it gets lost, because it has all these ideas and then it doesn't execute any of them very specifically or very, very like intensely enough to really be like, that's what it's specializing in, right? It doesn't really have that. So that's kind of my thoughts on Luminary. All right. Let's go to, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to talk about that one last. And Galeshot. So let's talk about Galeshot. So I think the concept, I think the Galeshot was one of those that I was actually really impressed by. I really, really liked the concept of the Galeshot was great. Before I played it, I thought it was just like, oh, it's just another longbow, and I retain that, right? I'm not gonna say that it's so much more exciting, but it felt really fun to play in the bow, right? In the cyclone bow, like it was really, really fun. I think the skills worked really well with each other. There were a couple of trades where I had some issues with, where I was like, this obviously seems much weaker than this other option, and there was some like grandmaster traits where I was like, is that good or is that not good? I don't know. I couldn't really like tell, probably because I hadn't played enough of it too. It's just, I honestly only played like an hour and a half of each of them, so I don't really know. But I still think that it's just another bow. It's missing kind of the like, whoa, okay, we're really changing the thing up. But I get that a lot of people really liked it, right? I think it's really cool. I like that it interacts also with some other weapons. One thing that I pointed out during the stream was that there is the one Grandmaster trait is called like Shrike or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but it's the one where you get like, after you hit like 8 missiles, you get like a little barrage of missiles that you send out, right? And it was weird because nowhere, anywhere on the spec or on other weapons did it indicate that you need, like, that this is a missile skill. And I was like, on stream, I was like, does anyone know what all counts for that? Is it just the like cyclone bow, or? And then people were like, no, it's the longbow skills and it's the axe skills. And I was like, okay, all right, that's kind of weird. So again, we go back a little bit. Like, yes, they're in beta, right? So, but we go back to something that already exists like this in game. We have the Virtuoso with blade skills that are indicated on the skill. So my obvious thing here is like, please indicate which ones are missiles and which ones are not. Like on the skills, they kind of need to say that, and like how many they count for. Because when I do the 2 skill on the longbow, is it like each shot of that is a missile, or is it like count as 1 missile, right? Like kind of maybe put some indicator on there where it's like missiles times 8 or something, right? Like something like that, so you can kind of see the indicator there. I kind of played around with that, and I was like, I'm kind of confused on it. Make it kind of like dumb proof for people like me that are just like, I don't understand this. But overall, I thought it was really good. The squall skills were really cool. I really love them because I miss the idea, right? We have the Elementalist has air magic, but let's be real, it's like more lightning magic than air magic, right? It's like more electricity than anything. You know, it's all like electric, it's all lightning bolt, it's all that kind of stuff, right? There's not a lot of actual, like, I know it's air, but I'm like, there's not a lot of wind. There's no wind influence in the air attunement. So I really loved seeing some actual, like, wind magic. Like, that was really, really cool. That's one of those fantasy tropes that we haven't really seen in Guild Wars, where we actually summon, like, tornadoes and, like, you know, I love the whole, like, and it comes together so well with the concept, because it's like, the feathers and the tengu and the birds and the bow and everything kind of like worked really well together. So I really, really thought the Galeshot was good. Like I thought it was really good. Obviously, there's little changes here and there that they need to do, and for some people that might be a really boring concept. Visually, I liked it. One of the things that I did point out again was the idea of having the Hawkeye. The Hawkeye is the skill. How did it function again? It's like once you use enough of the skills, right? Like anytime you use one of the skills, you get like this feather or something, right? And it was like once you have a set amount of feathers or missiles or whatever it was, right? Like I don't really remember how that all worked, but your one skill would change to Hawkeye, which was like this barrage of arrows you send out. There's no visual indicator. What did I have to do? I had to look down, and anyone that's played Guild Wars 2 for about 3 seconds will know this, that the boon bar is already a nightmare. And the only visual indicator that we have on how many feathers we have is on the boon bar. There's like a blue icon, and and I'm like, oh my god, not only am I playing the UI once again, but it's a tiny little icon in the plethora of icons that we have already on the boon bar. Give me a visual indicator. Why can't I have, not like, you have feathers already, you have the visual of the feathers everywhere in the spec. Why can't I have floating green feathers above me that tells me where I'm at with feathers? That tells me how close I am to using Hawkeye. Like, that would be really nice for for people like me that need to have that, right? Again, I'm not, like, I've played this game for a long time, but I don't get that much into the actual, like, so much into the flow of things that I know internally, okay, this is where I'm at, right? Like, I have to watch for it to flip over to know, okay, I'm at Hawkeye now, right? Like, that I'm ready to do the barrage. Because you want that skill, right as I'm thinking about, like, raid encounters, I'm thinking strikes, right? Where you have, like, DPS phases, where it's like, okay, right now is the time to do damage, or you need to get it down to, like, a certain percent, the boss or whatever, or like you really, like, now it's crunch time, you got to get as much damage out. So you want to be able to time that, right? And it would be nice to have a visual indicator, have some feathers float around us. Just, again, like I said, the Virtuoso has the blades around you. I can always tell how many blades I have around me. I don't have to look into the UI to see how many blades I have, right? I see there's 5 blades, boom, I'm gonna hit my blade songs, right? I know that and can see that by playing the game and not having to go down into the UI to look at that, right? And keep focusing on what's happening in front of me. So I would love to see the feathers on there. And other than that, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it did pretty well. The arrow thing was kind of, there was a little bit of a thing where I was like, where it felt kind of weird. And again, I think we recently had a big discussion on stream about the Revenant and like the Revenant energy thing, and a lot of people were kind of like booing me off the stage. Not really, but because we have friendly discussions on stream and stuff like that, and I don't, no one attacked me personally, and I didn't attack anyone personally. But for me, it was just like, the thing with Revenant that I really don't like is that there is a cooldown and an energy management system, and you manage both at the same time, which feels kind of weird, because it's like, okay, some abilities cost me all of my energy anyways, so why do I need a cooldown? Because chances are I probably won't, like, something like the Jade Wind ability on Shiro, I'm not going to get to 50 really quick. There was a whole discussion that I did, blah, 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 whatever, right? And people were against what I said, and it's fine. Some people probably agreed. It's fine, right? But I get the same feeling here with Galeshot a little bit, where we have to not only manage the arrow, the feather, whatever it's called, the arrow charges that you get in, right? That you have like a little visual indicator on the bar. Mind you, that's really nice. I like that there's a visual indicator, but it just kind of felt like a little bit, I'm like, okay, I have to, like, there's a really long cooldown on a bunch of these skills that cost me arrows anyways. And I'm like, what's the point? Like, I can't spam these skills anyways because they cost me like so many arrows to use anyways. So why do I need a cooldown? So that's kind of, that again might just be an issue with that I have. I don't know. People seem to be fine with the way that Revenant works, and that's totally okay. Maybe it's just not for me, and that's okay. I think Galeshot is for me. That would just be an issue that kind of I would have with the Galeshot as I play it if it stays like that. But still thought I'd point it out. So, all right, let's talk about Conduit. So Conduit in concept was really, really cool, right? Because we get Raza and we get the idea of like kind of a little bit of the dervish and having some scythe influence and getting, instead of having the god forms, we now have the forms of the Guild Wars 1 professions that we kind of take shape, like we kind of take form of. It's a little iffy, right? Because like a lot of people said, like Ventari and Monk, like was Ventari a monk in Guild Wars 1? I think was one of the questions that I saw. And it's not really whether or not these characters were the specific profession or if they fit that. But it's just kind of weird because it seems almost shoehorned in, right? It's like, okay, we want, like, it's like they want to make dervish work. So how do we, and they shoehorn these forms of the elite, the Guild Wars 1 professions into that elite specialization, right? And it's just kind of like, I don't know if it really works for me. It seems a little boring too because all it does is like increase your stats in different ways. So that's fine. I get it, it just something was missing there for me. Like the whole time I was playing, I felt like I needed to be more exciting. Again, that might have something to do with me not being a great Revenant player. I want to love Revenant, obviously, because I'm a Guild Wars 1 player and I talk about the lore all the time, and having all these big important lore characters be the legends you can channel is really, really cool. But there's just something, the way that it's executed, that I don't like. And then Conduit doesn't help the situation. I thought it would help the situation, but it kind of doesn't. It doesn't really overwhelm me that much. It doesn't really feel like it does anything impactful in that sense to me. So it didn't, the idea is still good. I just feel like they didn't really get the dervish feel. I've talked about this many times. I think the gameplay of the dervish already exists in game in the way that the herald works. So if you guys don't know how the dervish worked in Guild Wars 1, and the dervish, to put it in simple terms, the dervish would apply enchantments to themselves called flash enchantments. For the most part, they had regular enchantments too, but flash enchantments were instant activation skills. And what are enchantments? They're almost like boons, right? So they give you some kind of something, right? They were like heal every second or do more damage every second or whatever, right? For like a duration, right? They would give you a duration. And then they would have attack skills that remove enchantments from yourself. So meaning that, okay, you have a scythe attack that does like, 20 damage, but if you remove an enchantment, it now does double damage and it does 40 damage, right? Just obviously that's not a thing, but I'm just as an example, right? Like that's how it would work, okay? So that already kind of exists in the way that Herald works, because the Herald has the facets, and so the facets you apply to yourself, giving yourself and your friendly units boons, and then you remove that from yourself, so the boon applications goes away, and you remove that from yourself by causing negative effects to your enemy by, doing whatever, like the flame blast or the claws that come out or the eyes or whatever, right? Like there's all these different things, the biggest one being the elite, where you have the wing flapping and it's this big animation of Glenn coming out, right? So that already kind of exists in game. So I guess they tried to like take the other ideas that the dervish had and put that into like an elite specialization, but it just kind of, I don't know. It's just I can't really articulate like what it is that it's missing, but it feels like it's missing something. So you know, and I don't know if you guys can agree or disagree with this, but I would love to kind of hear what you guys think it's missing, because, like I said, the idea is there, the concept is there, right? Like using Raza as being the dervish. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, he was originally a ritualist. It's like, yeah, but he was able to be anything, and we're already adding the ritualist. Why would we make another ritualist? Like, that's silly, okay? So I like the idea because Raza was the one hero that could be any profession. So what better way to add a dervish in than to have something like that? I mean, obviously they could take that away and say, oh, we're gonna just, you know, actually use one of the dervish heroes that we had in Guild Wars 1 and channel them or something, right? But like Milani or something. But I think I like the idea of Raza being the dervish and stuff, but they just kind of need to make it feel like, I would rather, if we're gonna go dervish and we're really gonna go with the scythe idea, I would, again, we have customizable skills this time around. So if you're gonna go with like customizing into being a specific profession, it would be kind of cool to have, you know, because we have almost a shroud thing with Malix and the elite. It'd be kind of nice to maybe have something like that for the dervish where you specialize in one of the specific things, right? So in that sense, whatever your second legend is, your backup legend, right? That's how they kind of, you take the form of whatever your second legend is, right? Or whatever legend, not whatever your second legend is, but whatever legend you're in, right? Beside obviously like taking Raza or whatever, you don't have to take Raza, but maybe have it where your cosmic wisdom actually changes your appearance and maybe even change your weapon skills. You know, and give you like almost like a shroud where it gives you, and I know adding another shroud, I get it, right? A form of that profession. So like having a monk, you know, and having a mesmer or having, you know, whatever, any, you know, any of the other ones, right? With a weapon set that kind of resembles that or something. I don't know. That's just kind of like an idea, you know, and then you can have Raza actually become like, you actually take the form of Raza and you actually have a scythe in your hand, right? If we're gonna really solidify Raza as being the dervish, you know, there has to be something like that, I feel like, because otherwise it doesn't feel like you're really taking the form, right? The cool thing about the dervish, just so you guys understand, one of the reasons why a lot of people loved the forms, the god forms, is because your model changed to the god form, and that was really cool because you took like, you know, you could look like a dervish and you go around and you take the form of Dwayna and all of a sudden you're like the avatar of Dwayna, and it was really, really cool because you like transformed and it was really awesome, right? And I kind of feel like that's missing there, right? We already have the gameplay of the boons, the, you know, the enchantments, and then stripping those enchantments to do after. We already have that. So if you want to take the rest of those, you got to have that little bit of transformation if we're taking the form. So that's kind of my feedback there. Otherwise, I didn't think it was too bad, but it's a lot lower than what I thought from the initial view of it, okay? So next up is the Paragon. So as you guys know, the Paragon is one of my favorites because I've been playing Warrior a lot. I've been playing maining Warrior for like 7 years now, something like that, I want to say, just because I really like Spellbreaker, because I like the Paragon, and they were the elite specialization that was kind of, you know, was supposed to be, you know, spiritually, you know, in concept, the old Sun Spears, right? So now we're getting the actual Sun Spears, the Paragon. The Paragons are coming back. So one of the things, I think I've talked about this a lot, is I think that, what is it, the command skills? The command skills, they're okay. I think arbitrarily, ArenaNet this time around, and I didn't talk about during the Troubadour, but arbitrarily, everything this round of Elite Specializations, everything is 3 seconds. Everything is 3 seconds. There's like a 3-second delay, not delay, but like a 3-second cooldown on the auto attacks of spirits. There's a 3-second cooldown on, there was something on Troubadour where there was like every 3 seconds it does this. And then on Paragon, you know, the command skills and the echoes and the whatever on the refrains after 3 seconds. I'm like, why is everything 3 seconds? Seems so arbitrary. We don't need that. So I really think that the command skills themselves weren't bad. I really just think that they should not have a 3-second delay, which is forever. Okay, in a game of Guild Wars 2, 3 seconds is forever. So I think you know, someone disagreed with me on stream when I said 1 second. They were like, it doesn't need to. But I get the idea that they want an echo, because even like audibly, you can hear that there's an echo in the commands that they use, which I thought was really, really cool, by the way. I thought it was fantastic. I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? It doesn't feel like just a shout, but there's actually an echo. So it makes it feel so loud and booming and like, yeah, okay, we're really taking control of this, you know? So have it be 1 second delay. Like, an echo doesn't take 3 seconds to echo, right? Like, in real life, I mean, obviously, the, like, you know, echo happens immediately. So I think having the echoes happen after, like, 1 second, because you want to make the gameplay tighter, right? Because it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in 3 seconds of combat in Guild Wars 2. So it's really hard for me to say, okay, well, I need this in 3 seconds to happen. I don't know what happens in 3 seconds. Like, you know, I could be dead in 3 seconds. I don't know. You know, so I need it a little bit tighter. I think 1 second is fine because you do it and then 1 second is just close enough to have that effect happen. So I think they should be 1 second on the echo for those commands. The range on all of those, because I liked the chants with the refrains. I really liked that gameplay with the motivation. I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I thought I was like, when I first even started, I was like, I don't understand how this works. But once I got the hang of it, where they almost feel like these stances that you go into, where it's like, oh, I'm in the refrain of my F1, right? Which is like the damage dealing, the might producing, right? I want to switch into the like F2, right? It's a lot more active, I feel like, than some of the other ones, where like in Berserker, I just go into Berserk mode and I just do the thing the whole time until I get out of Berserk mode and I go back into it, right? And like I press my F1 off cooldown, right? Like that's kind of, but it's a lot more active where I have to like think about which refrain I want to have, right? Which chant do I want to have active at any time? And I thought it was really, really cool. So I love the motivation gameplay. I thought it was really cool. I just think that the range of any of those skills is just so small. It's so small. Like 360 on any of those. Here's my thing with it, right? We have shout skills that are already 600 range. Okay. They should be 900 range. Like I thought about, I talked about that as well, where I'm like, oh, they should be 600 range. They should be 600 range. But then I listened to the command skills, right? And I'm like, man, they already sound louder because of the echo than shout skills. So they should be longer range than that, right? Like you kind of want to make the audio kind of combined with the actual like execution of the skill, right? So if you're making them louder and like more booming and like that they create an echo, right? It's not just like for great justice, but it's like for great justice, right? Like it's like there's a way bigger effect, right? Obviously that was just a lame example, but the thing is, I think it should be like a 900 range. I don't think, because none of those commands provide anything that's like, oh my god, that's world ending. Visually, so a lot of people have talked about more wings. We need more wings and stuff. I think they should happen on like every chant and every command. I think the wings should come out. Not that they need to go like the elite skill does it like in a very like big way where, you know, you rise up and the wings come out and this like thing appears behind you. That's fine, right? I think that's fine the way that happens. But I think that there should be at least some kind of wings, golden wings happening behind you as you're using the different commands. I think that was a big thing. I showed it off on stream because we're playing right now through Guild Wars 1 and we're playing our Paragon, and we have Paragons in our group because we're focusing on Paragons and shouts and all these things. There's like a whole concept going on. So, and I showed it off. I was like, and you see the wings everywhere. Like everyone has golden wings at all times. Like it was crazy. So I kind of want to see that, right? I think that's feedback that a lot of people have been saying, whatever, right? Then the other thing was that I had is, so it's a support focused elite spec, which is fine, right? I think ArenaNet needs to, some of the traits were a little boring, but also they didn't add anything. There was two of the Grandmaster trades I kind of looked at, and they felt like they were coming from the same thing. They were like improving what the chants do, but they like did it in like a different way a little bit. And I was like, well, this is, it's not really changing the gameplay of anything, and they felt so similar to each other. I like the idea of it, like having a Grandmaster that improves with the chance to, but they felt so similar to each other that I was like, well, these could be like just added to each other. Like, I don't think that that would be like too much, right? Obviously, you could lower, again, you can lower the numbers, you can increase the numbers, whatever. You can always do that, right? That's an easy change to do. But I just kind of, I was missing something there. So I think what ArenaNet really needs to focus on, I get that the Elite Spec overall is supposed to be like a supportive style, right? But ArenaNet has already, in the past, they have moved away from having Elite Specs be in a, like, provide a specific role. So take, for example, the Druid, right? They recently, in recent times, they redid what some of the traits do on Druid and what some of the skills do on Druid, because they thought that just having a support focused spec wasn't really good. Like, they wanted to have more options. They wanted to have a damage dealing option, so they added a bunch of conditions to it. The execution is a little questionable. I don't know how well it works in like end game and stuff like that. I don't know if there's like a meta build for these or whatever, but the idea is still there that they don't want Elite Specs to just focus on one thing. So the issue we run into is that it doesn't do anything for damage, really. It's just the damage numbers kind of suck. Which, again, they can change that or whatever. But I really feel like they need to focus on, and this is what I'm trying to get to, is having each of the 3 lines focus on something different, right? Where I think they could definitely, because one of the things that Paragon did in Guild Wars 1 was also a lot of conditions. They would inflict a lot of cracked armor and bleeding and like all these different, like burning. There was a ton of burning with the Paragon in Guild Wars 1. So they could have one line, again, let's say the top row of this traits deal with condition, the middle line deal with supportive focus, and then the third line be like power damage or something. The other thing that I would like to see in the traits is, and this could be in the supportive line, but the issue is that you have a support spec, right? Which that's kind of what Paragon, they designed that around it, which is, again, it's fine. Just give us different options to kind of modify it a little bit. But the issue is we only have one support focused weapon. We only have staff. So even on stream, people were saying, well, you have to use the staff to be a support, otherwise you're a shit support. So maybe give us some options where we can maybe provide other boons in other ways, or healing in some other way, like maybe where we don't need another healing weapon. I was thinking, because they recently did this with Necromancer, where they changed one of the traits to make the staff a supportive weapon, right? Where they added this one trade where if you take this trade, your staff now does all these fancy things, and it's like, ooh, it's so much better, rather than just changing what the weapon does itself, which I still think is not necessarily lazy, but kind of weird, because now you're forcing everyone to take that trade to make that weapon good. So I would rather see a good weapon get that treatment to the point where they get different things on it, and then have bad weapons get a rework, rather than having a trade added as a band-aid fix for a bad weapon. But anyways, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe why don't they just add like that same thing, a trait that modifies the spear to have supportive things on it. And then I realized that the spear is locked behind Janthia Wiles, and I was like, great. That would then force people to get Janthia Wiles if they want to have a long-range support weapon. So obviously they can't do that, right? So what else can we do? Well, find some kind of way to add more maybe supportive things to burst skills, because every weapon has burst skills. So maybe add some more. There are certain things that you can get with like Soldier's Focus and stuff where you can be more supportive with it. But maybe add something else to it, or add some other way that we can be supportive beside just using staff. Because I think that for certain encounters and for the way that Guild Wars just works, it would be nice to have some kind of maybe a little bit of a longer range We have Warhorn that has a little bit of range on it. I think that kind of works a little bit, but we don't have anything to help out the Warhorn on main hand, right? And I don't think adding a new weapon just for that is, obviously it's not going to happen. So I think that they need to add something in the traits there, in the supportive lines, to add to that. So, all right. So next up is Ritualist. So Ritualist, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think was, out of all of the elite specializations, my biggest disappointment. So the first thing that immediately I realized, and it made me want to just turn off log out of Ritualist and just move on, was that it felt so clunky to have the spirits be bound to the shroud. It felt so clunky to me, because just the way that the skills worked, and then the F skills are like completely superfluous. It was weird. It was so weird. It was so strange to me, where I was like, the F skills don't do anything really. Like, the whole thing felt really weird. Just the spirits themselves. Like, I think the weapon spells were fine. I like those. I like the idea of Ritualist, obviously. The idea of like spirit spammer, or having like building something supportive, like it's definitely there, but I can't really put it into words. But the way that I would want it to work, so I'm going to just kind of explain to you guys how I want to see Ritualist work, okay? Is I want to see the F skills be changed to actually summoning the spirits. I don't want the spirits to be bound to the shroud at all. I know that people were saying, there was a bunch of people on Discord that I had, there was a bunch of people in general that were saying, oh, well, Lingering Spirits, which is the Grand Master trait that makes your spirits hang out longer, needed to be like automatically baseline. I think it's stupid. I think not necessarily that idea is stupid, but I just think that having the spirits be bound to the shroud itself is just such a dumb idea. I think, and this is the way that I would like to see it, okay? To really get that Ritualist feeling out there, because the spirits themselves aren't overpowered. There's no reason to have them, to not have them outside of Shroud, because they're not. It's not like they do 10,000 damage every second. Like, it's not like that. It's not that they're going to be super overpowered. But if you compare it to something like Reaper, like, it doesn't even compare at all. Like, I think number wise and like utility wise and things like that. So the way that I want to see it, change the F2, F3, F4 to just summoning the spirits. Not actually having, because mind you, when you summon the spirits now in the shroud, it automatically does the attack. So you summon the like Anguish spirit, and it does the barrage of attacks that fly out, right? Not that. I don't want that barrage of attacks, okay? I just want F2, F3, F4 to summon each of the spirits and just have the spirits there. Do their regular auto attack, okay? And then when you go into Shroud, I want those attacks to still be there, right? I want them. What I want to see is, I want low cooldowns on those skills in the Shroud, okay? And so you have the 2, 3, and 4 skills there to use on cooldown while your spirits are there. But you can even use them without spirits. So let's say you summon your spirits and they, out of combat, and you're not in Shroud, and you're just kind of letting them do their thing, right? And they end up like expiring, right? Which means they do the same thing that they always do, they explode. Or you can command your F skills. Your F skills are flip over skills now. So they flip over to their explodey skills. So you say, okay, I explode all 3 of my spirits because I don't want them anymore, or whatever, right? But you can still go into Shroud, and you can still use your 2, 3, and 4 ability, because they all have a Ritualist attack that's attached to it. So you can keep the Shroud skills the way they are, right? You can kind of improve maybe what some of them do. Some of the numbers can be adjusted or whatever, right? But like, you still want those there. But so the way that I want to get the feeling to is that when you have your spirits up, that your spirits, almost like they support your Shroud, right? So because if you have your spirits out and you use your 2, 3, and 4 ability in your Shroud, okay, the spirits do their attacks. meaning that now they're really strong, right? Because you have marked a target with your 1 ability in your shroud, and you use your 2, 3, and 4 ability in your shroud, and you have your spirits up at the same time, meaning they do their attacks, okay? But then you can still but let's say the spirits expire, you can still use your shroud abilities 2, 3, and 4. Right? Like, I don't want I want the shroud to be independent of the spirits. I don't think that there is in any world, like, the spirits have never been bound to any shroud ever. Okay? We have ritualists in Guild Wars 1 and in Guild Wars 2 that summon their spirits without going into any shroud ever. I think that completely destroys the idea of what a ritualist is. Okay, I get that they're calling it the ritualist shroud, and that's fine. You can still have a shroud that deals with increasing, like, where, you know, you help out your spirits by doing more damage, and your spirits help you up because your attacks do more damage, right? Like, that kind of, you know, you kind of work together in the shroud. Like, I kind of like that idea, but I don't think that the spirits should be bound to it, right? So then someone might say, well, what does the Shroud 5 do, right? Because it teleports your spirits. What does the Shroud 5 do when you don't have your spirits? Well, you could just have that heal you or something. I don't know what it does now when you don't have your spirits out, but I think there's a way that they can detach the spirits. Because, like I said, the F abilities really feel like they don't do anything. They feel like they're just there. And it's like, the spirits are going to expire anyway. Like, yeah, I can press those buttons if I need to have that happen at you know, at any time. But I think the spirits should all have like a duration of like 30 seconds or something, and you can summon them for 30 seconds if you want to. And because their auto attacks don't do that much damage. So you can still adjust the shroud abilities to have longer cooldowns or lower the damage on that, because the auto attacks on the spirits, they were like doing on the Marauder set that they automatically give you, they were like doing like 2 to 3,000 damage. I was like, this doesn't even, you know, even if you have them sitting out and just auto attacking a target like every 3 seconds, like, that's not that big of a deal, you know? But to really get that ritualist feeling of like spamming the spirits and kind of summoning them at will, just detach them from the shroud. They really don't. The 2, 3, and 4 abilities shouldn't be flip over skills, and they shouldn't be like summon your spirit and automatically do the attack. They should still have spirit attacks to attach to them, but just have the spirits be independently summoned and have them not tied to the shroud at all. And you can have lingering spirits still. Maybe, I think every 3 seconds, again, arbitrary, every 3 seconds the spirits attack. I think you could lower that to 2, like baseline, have the 2 be baseline, and then have lingering spirits, lower that to every second. So there's still reason to take lingering spirits or whatever, but you can rename it to something else or whatever. I don't know, right? That's just the name. You can always change that. I know that it's a Guild Wars 1 callback. I get that, you know, but there's other Guild Wars 1 callbacks you can do. So, but that's kind of my idea, because I feel like that would feel more like what the Ritualist was in Guild Wars 1, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I feel about the Ritualist there. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that that's like a better concept or something? Like, I didn't really get a response on that on stream. I'm going to be honest, like, it got to a point where I like shut down and I was like, I hate this. And I don't even know. I think I was getting kind of tired too at the end of it. And I was like, I don't like this and I hate that I don't like it. And I just, you know, but that's kind of my thought on the Ritualist there. So you guys can let me know. So next up we have the Amalgam. Okay, so the Amalgam, I think many people will agree on this. I think overall is probably the most well thought out one that they have. I like the animations of the Quicksilver, right? There's like a theme, and they've executed the theme so well, and I feel like the traits work really well, and being able to customize your skills is like so much more than any other elite spec. Like you have all these options on what you want to do, what you can do with it. And I was like, oh my god, this is so much cooler than all the other elite specs, like in the way that they have it. Like you can kind of tell that they put way more effort into Amalgam. Like someone really was like sitting there until like midnight, like, you know, on a Friday night, like, no, I need to add more. It needs more skills. And like they just kind of went with that, right? It was kind of like, overwhelming a little bit, where I was like, wow, I have options, I can do all these things, and I was like, oh, I have freedom, and it doesn't matter which weapon I use because it feels like everything worked really well. I love the animations. Obviously some of the numbers need to be changed, and I heard you could do like a 100% uptime of like alacrity and quickness or whatever, right? Again, they can kind of like change that around and make that it's not so or whatever, right? Like I said, I don't really deal in those very specific things, but overall I was kind of like it was weird because by the end of it I was like, I have no notes on like what I would want them to change. Mind you, I haven't really played Engineer. I only recently, after the announcement of Amalgam, I was like, man, I really want to sit down and learn Engineer and really kind of get like into Engineer a little bit. So I made a new Engineer. I played on my Engineer for a long time, and I've been having a good time with it. I've been really enjoying it. I've been playing Hollowsmith, which I think is really cool, really fun. I like the forge element to it, you know, it's really cool. I feel like maybe there could be a little bit of a maybe like a more visual indicator. Some of the visuals I couldn't quite figure out what they meant. Like, it was weird because sometimes my body was like in a metallic thing, and then sometimes my body was in like a weird like orange metallic thing, and I don't know if that was like a visual bug or if there was like a specific trade interaction or a skill interaction or something. I couldn't really figure that out. Maybe that was like, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough or something. Maybe I didn't play enough of it. But yeah, I felt like I really don't have anything like written down here for like things that I would like to see improved. Overall, I thought it was the best one, like in terms of, you know, everything kind of fitting together. The trades were fine. I thought, you know, I was like, oh, I kind of played around with some trades. I really liked the poison trade. I thought it was really, really cool. You know, being able to like really get like stacks of poison on enemies and stuff was like really, really cool. Obviously, numbers can always change. They can always adjust what everything does, and it doesn't have to be as overpowered as it was, you know. But overall, I thought it was really good. I don't really, you know, I feel like even if I were to give notes on it, I wouldn't do it justice because I'm not a big Engineer player. I've played probably less than 200 hours of Engineer. I'm going to be honest, out of 10,000 hours. Like, I have not played much Engineer. So I don't think I would do it justice. So take that for what you will. Second to last, we have the Evoker. Now, the Evoker was another one that was kind of disappointed in. I know that numbers-wise, like, I had people sharing videos about, like, oh, 55k damage, and and I get it, right? Like, the numbers it can always be adjusted. They can nuke it tomorrow, and it can be turned into a 25k damage build, okay? You don't know, right? Like, but conceptually, there was, like, something really missing. So, as a concept, it's like you're supposed to evoke the spirits of the wild to help you fight your enemy. But the familiar kind of felt like, so first of all, they seem to have the mini AI, like how the miniatures follow you. That's how they follow you. Meaning that anytime I'm running through the world, my familiar is about 3 miles that way, and I'm just like, what? Okay, weird. Like, I don't like that. Someone said it should be like the lantern from the Luminary. I don't think they should be up my butt that much, but we already have a pet class in the game that has a better AI than that. So I think they need to change that. They need to have the familiar be much closer to you at any given point, because half the time in battle, I didn't even know where it was. I was like, where's this fox? Where's this magical fox that I've summoned from the mists? It was like nowhere to be seen. I was like, this doesn't feel visually that impressive. Like, visually there was like really nothing to it. And then even like execution wise, like, it was just like adding another skill to my bar. Like, it was like F5. Okay, press F5 off cooldown. And I was like, okay. So I'm telling the familiar, like, this familiar is like so useless that I have to tell it to do something in combat. I don't really get the like unifying the powers of the spirits of the wild with the powers of the elementalist. Like, I'm like, okay, well, we tell it to attack every, like, you know, 5 seconds or whatever, right? Because that's the amount of times that you get to do that. And it was just like, it feels like Catalyst, but Catalyst had like a better concept because it has like the thing with Catalyst was that you had these fields that you would summon with your Jade Sphere, right? And like you would summon those, and then you have your augment skills that do more when you're in your sphere field, right? Like, so there was like a concept there. So I was like, okay, I could kind of see that. Not that I'm a fan of Catalyst by any means, but I can kind of see where they're going with it. With Evoker, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I just don't. It's like you have a skill that you press every so often, and then that gets stronger after every so often. And it's like, I don't know, it felt really visually underwhelming, and it felt very like it didn't add anything new to it. Then there was no point in like, for like a support spec, you know, we kind of talked about that a little bit because I like to play water a lot, and there's no way that you can make otter like a damage dealing spec. So it was like, okay, whatever, because it's just healing and regeneration that it provides, which is just so underwhelming. But you can't make a support spec out of it because it misses all of the important. Again, I don't deal in like boons and all that stuff, but even I noticed that it was missing, like there was like no stability, no resolution, like none of that stuff. And you know, I play a lot of Tempest, and I'm like, man, Tempest provides like a bunch of these things, like, you know, so much of that. So it felt really like, I don't know. I was just like, I'm underwhelmed by using even Otter as a support spec. I don't see how you could build it to be it felt really bad because the familiar skills weren't that impressive by themselves. I really like the elite skill because there was like all these things happening. You're like, oh my god, and like they're all going at it, you know, as you're sending like 3 spirits to attack this one guy. It's just like, oh my god, it's really cool and I like it, right? But all the other ones, all the familiar skills felt very really underwhelming in a way, and just like I said, it just the familiar. I talked about how there has to be some kind of auto casting on the familiar skill to kind of make it feel like this autonomous thing. You know, me having to use the skill to tell this familiar to do its thing. Why is this even here? This is not helping me. It's like I have to take care of this thing that's floating next to me and I have to tell it to do something. It feels kind of weird to me because I feel like the Spirits of the Wild are like these guides and these like, oh yeah, we're going to show you what you need to do. So it'd be kind of nice to have at least the option to have auto casting its skill or whatever. And then also one thing, so the traits weren't bad. I think the traits were fine, but I kind of what I was looking for a little bit more in the traits was the interaction with the actual familiar, like the skills that the familiar casts. Like I wanted to see like traits that changed what the Firefox was doing, or what the Otter was doing, or what the Hare was doing, right? Like to maybe change it from like a single target to like an AoE. Let's say we have a trait that deals with like being defensive, right? We talked about that a little bit, like adding maybe some skills to the familiar through the traits, but doing supportive. Let's say we're doing a supportive role. And so now you pick this, but you still specialize in using the fox. So it could then provide, maybe instead of attacking the enemy, it now provides like an AoE of like might and fury around you or something like that. That like kind of helps your people around you, right? So you can still like specialize in it, but it does something different or something. Not saying that that's necessarily a good thing and they could change that, but it'd be kind of nice to have something that changes what the familiar does, because there's nothing really that interacts specifically with that. And again, many of these elite or not many, but some of the elite specializations have some customization built in, and some of them don't. And it kind of felt a little like, I'm like, man, you know, the Amalgam got all these different skills that you can slot in. Like you had 8 different skills that you can have of your in your F ability, but then for Evoker, I'm set to just, nope, you're getting that pet, and that's what you're doing, right? Like Otter felt, I go back to it because I play water a lot, but Otter felt so useless. There's no reason to take Otter, because every so often maybe you get a 1-second stun out of it, but it's like, that's not enough. That's not enough. Like, that doesn't do anything. So, again, I kind of wish that there's some more interaction between what the familiar does and what the traits do and that kind of thing. It felt a little underwhelming. Have some auto casting, maybe have something that they automatically do, like provide boons automatically even or something. I don't know. But that's kind of, Evoker didn't really, it went from being like, I think I had it on like a B tier to going like down to D tier for me, because it just really didn't feel that impressive to me, I'm gonna be honest. So and yeah, so the last one for today is the Antiquary. So the Antiquary, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've been trying to figure out the reason why it took a few days to make this video is because there were certain ones that I didn't know how to like talk about. But the Antiquary seems so weird to me, because the concept of the Antiquary, you loot artifacts from the enemy, and they use the like Indiana Jones looking, you know, handsome fucking guy, right? Like in the concept art, which I was like, whoa, all right, hello. But it was just like, okay, they talked about artifacts, okay, cool, and then you just lean into like, ooh, it's Scrit, and you're like, okay, you can still salvage the situation. And then they're like, yeah, here's a Metal Legion guitar and a and a hollow dancer, and I was like, I don't get it. You know, you lost me. Like there was a point where like up until a certain point where you're like, all right, I'm still behind you, and then I'm like, no, I'm not. And that's the whole time I felt like that. I the way that I described it on stream was that it felt like they had like 5 different people come up with this elite specialization, but none of the people worked in the same room. Okay, so they had one person work on the name and the concept in one room, one person work on the actual animations of the skills, one person and the skills, one person work on the traits, and one person work on like the concept art. And then they, like, by the end of it, they brought all these people. I don't know if that was even 5. I didn't count, but numerous people working on different aspects of this spec. And then they brought them together, and they were like, they threw it all together, and they were like, there it is, ta-da! And I was like, oh my god, because it just feels so weird to me. Like the Scrit situation, I get it. It's funny, it's cute, right? Everyone's like, oh my god, I love my Scritmancer, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, what does that have to do with being an Antiquary, someone that deals in artifacts? On stream, I pointed out that there's all these things from Guild Wars 1 that they could be using as these artifacts that you use, that you salvage or steal or whatever from the enemy. There's so many cool items. If we're doing this whole round of callbacks to, right, we have the Tales on the Troubadour, we have the Paragon, the Ritualist, the Dervish, right? Like, we have all these callbacks that we're doing to Guild Wars 1. Why aren't we using things from Guild Wars 1 as artifacts? Like, there's so many really cool items that they could use from Guild Wars 1 that provided their own things in Guild Wars 1, that they could utilize that as the utility skills or as the skills that they have. So again, it just feels a little disconnected from what it was supposed to be. Then a lot of people are talking about like, oh, where are the cards coming in? And I told you guys, so my sister plays Guild Wars 2, but she hasn't really been actively playing and doing whatever. Like, she's still stuck in like End of Dragons. She hasn't really played since she played through End of Dragons. It's been a few years now for her to like really diving into the story and into the world of Guild Wars and stuff. And I kind of showed her all the trailers and stuff. And I told her, I'm like, well, with this one, right, Antiquary was like, well, with this one, here's the idea. And I'm like, I'm going to show you. And she's like, okay. And I showed it to her, and she's like, okay, the card. First of all, she hated the icon, which was really, I thought all the icons were really cool. She was like, no, that icon is so ugly. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's an artist herself. So I was like, and I showed her the other icons, and she was like, no, they're all fine. She's like, I just really hate that icon. I think it's really ugly. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. I don't know. Whatever, you know. But I thought it was fine. So, but then I showed her the thing, and she was like, what's with the Scrit? Like, why is there a Scrit there? And why is this? She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, I don't either. I don't, I'm glad there's some confirmation there from like Unbiased, because again, she hasn't been playing, she's never really dove that deep into Guild Wars 2, and much of the world she only knows through like playing a little bit and then what I've told her and stuff. So it's like, she's like, why the script? And it's so weird. So they have the concept as the Antiquary that steals artifacts, but he does it through the script, but then it's not really artifacts. It's just these random items that you'd find at a junkyard. You know, it's like a hollow dancer. I'm like, that's not an artifact. You can't call that an artifact. That's a random item that any Asura probably has in their house. Like any teenage Asura has in their house. Like, I don't, you know, I'm kind of missing the thing there. And then, so the icon, a lot of people are like, oh, it's cards and da-da-da, and I thought too. And then there was this talk about, oh, this is the collection. If you guys look up the rare collections, right? We have the rare collections in game. It's the rare collections icon is what the cards look like. So the idea is, right, the collections have to do with, you know, an Antiquary collects artifacts. So there's like a little bit of a connection there. But then, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that a little bit, right? Like items, collections, I can kind of see that, okay. But then the card situation was shoehorned in with the traits. Then they have this like reshuffle thing, and it's like you can shuffle the artifacts, and then the artifacts are so random in what they do, and it's just, it feels so all over the place. I couldn't get behind on it, and a lot of people, I think there was a lot of people that enjoyed it. I think there was a lot of people that enjoyed it for what it was, and they were like, yeah, maybe it doesn't really, you know, it needs some number changes and here and there, blah blah blah, whatever, but they genuinely liked it, which is fine. You can like what, you know, it's totally fine, no judgment for, you know, against anyone like that. But the thing is that I just, you know, I look at the whole thing all together, and it's just, they lose me in all these different parts, because it's like, it doesn't feel like Indiana Jones, because it's so jokesy with the script that's just like hanging off a turret. And it's like, why is a cryptus turret, which is almost like, you know, isn't that a live thing? How's that an artifact, right? And then we have like an organ of the chalk, and I'm like, it's just so weird. I'm like, why? That was my question the whole time. I'm like, why? And then the traits were okay. They kind of worked with some of the skills, but then none of the artifacts, specifically like the randomness of the artifacts, was like, okay. Like the double edge skills were fine. I think those were good. I like the way that you have this high risk, high reward thing in there. You know, that was okay. The elite skill was good with getting, you know, you get access to all these different artifacts, and it kind of just cycles through, and you keep being able to use it and stuff. I get it, right? There's that. But the artifacts themselves were like just so strange to me, and there was just, and I don't know how to make it better. I don't know, because I just think that so many things in that specific spec felt so removed from all the other things that I don't know how to make it all work together. So I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I really don't know. I wish they would have done something a little different. Like, I get that they wanted to take the spec and do something different with the actual like stealing of things. I get that, but overall, I gotta say, I'm not really hot on it. I'm not. I don't, and I don't know how to make it better. It's just, it might just be a personal preference as well. You guys might say, well, you know what? I love it. I love the script. I love all the items you get. I love all the artifacts. I love all this stuff. It's great. And that's good. I wish there was more people that liked it, because that just means ArenaNet has to do less. I don't have to like all 9 elite specializations. God knows I don't like all 9 elite specializations for the last 3 sets that we got. You know, there's a lot of ones where I'm like, ugh, I really hate that. I really don't like playing that, you know, which is fine. That's great, because I just think that someone else might like it even more, right? And that gives variety in the builds and the characters that we see throughout the world. I was playing PvP recently, and it was really cool to see same classes, right? We had like 3 of the same class in our group, but they were all different elite specializations. They're all doing different things. And I was like, this is so cool, because it kind of makes it feel like you're playing a different profession. You're not playing, like, you can have a hollowsmith and a scrapper and a mechanist in the group, but because of what they provide, they almost feel like different professions. And that's cool to me. I like that. That's, you know, the Antiquary pretty much. Like, I don't, you know, I I don't know. I don't know how to make it better. I don't really have feedback. I just really feel like there's certain things they shoehorned in. There's certain ideas that they had, and they had all these different aspects of different ideas, and they all brought it, right? They had the Indiana Jones idea, and they brought that to the table. And they had the cards idea, and they brought that to the table. And they had having the comedic relief with the script as an idea, and they brought that in. And they had random items from, Tyria idea, and they brought that in. And they try to make that all work together, and I don't think it really did that well. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it did that well. But again, maybe it's the best performing Elite spec. I don't know. But those are kind of my thoughts. I know that I've been rambling for an hour and a half now. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. Leave a comment or come hang out with me on stream or whatever. I would appreciate whatever interaction. And we will be... there's a couple other videos that I want to kind of jump into over the next few days. Because we're going to be talking about, right, Homestead. They're going to be talking about a Homestead thing or whatever, which isn't up my alley, but I still make a video on it. But I think there's going to be a lot of other things that I want to start discussing with the thing. I think a lot of people have kind of lost track because we're getting a new expansion. We're not just getting a set of Elite specializations. I do understand that the major focus is Elite specializations, and I know that ArenaNet knows that as well, because they've been focusing on nothing but the Elite specializations, but there's a lot more to talk about. We're getting homesteads, we're getting skimmer masteries, we're getting a completely new island or place, whatever, Castora, that has never been touched on, right? We're getting Inquest stuff, right? There's so many different things that are coming into the game with this next expansion beside Elite specializations. So I kind of want to wrap up the discussion on Elite specializations. Obviously, we're still going to be addressing those as we move on and stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be making Elite specialization focused videos anytime soon, because we've just done so many weeks now of that. And I kind of want to move on, you guys. I want to talk about other things. And there's so many other things to talk about. So if there's anything revolutionary that happens with the Elite specializations, I'll probably make a video about it. But for now, we're going to kind of move on from it. We can discuss more in the comments. We can discuss more on Discord if you guys want to do that. I would really love that. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, I would also appreciate that. Also, I've updated the merch store a little bit. There's a couple of things. I'm going to probably go in the next few weeks and get a couple items so I can show those off on stream, and maybe even make not an ad necessarily for them, but just kind of make take some pictures and stuff with them and kind of show you guys some of the stuff on there, which I think is really, really cool. So, but yeah, so that's going to be it pretty much. And yeah, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video or stream or whenever. All right, bye guys.